Bonjour tout le monde. Relative pronouns. Qui, que, dont, and ou. So, what are relative pronouns? A relative pronoun joins two clauses together. The relative clause adds information to the noun in the main clause. For example, le gâteau qui est sur la table. The cake which is on the table. Le gâteau que j'aime. The cake that I love. So both of them are adding some more information about the cake. Qui. Let's start with qui. Qui is used for both persons and things when it is the subject of the verb that follows. And here's an example. L'homme qui voit les enfants. The man who sees the children. If we look at this sentence, if we look at the verb, it's voir. Who is doing the seeing? Who's doing the seeing? It's the man. The man sees the children. The man who sees the children. So the man is the subject of this verb here, and therefore we're going to use qui. Here's another example. That was an example using a person. Here's an example using a thing. Le feu qui brûle si fort. The fire that burns so strongly. The verb is brûle. What is doing the burning? It's the fire. So the fire is the subject. It's the subject of the verb. Therefore, we're going to use qui. Que is also used for both persons and things when it's the complement of the direct object of the verb that follows. What does that mean? Let's have a look at an example. L'homme que j'ai vu. Okay, so once again, it's always a good idea to look at the verb. The verb is voir. Who did the seeing? I did. So I am the subject. I'm the person doing the verb. So I'm the subject. What did I see? I saw the man. So the man is the direct object. Therefore, we're going to replace the man with que. Yeah? If the man was doing the verb, we'd replace it with qui. But it's I'm doing the verb. Someone else is doing the verb. This is the direct object, so we replace it with que. Right? L'homme que j'ai vu. In the same way, la maison qu'il a acheté, the house that he bought. And note, so we've got que. When it's next to a vowel, of course, we have to have an apostrophe. We take out the we have the apostrophe. La maison qu'il a acheté. You'll notice as well. Oh, what is that e? Well, that is an agreement with a preceding direct object. Yeah, that's what the que is there. It's preceding direct object, so we have an agreement. Okay, so qui when it's the subject and que when it's the direct object. Dont is also used for persons and things and can replace three things. Let's take them one by one. First of all, we have this idea of de. We can't just leave de stranded at the end of a sentence or stranded at the end of a clause. Strictly speaking in English, we shouldn't leave prepositions stranded at the end of sentences either. It's not very elegant. But in French, you absolutely can't. So we need to incorporate it somehow. And dont takes care of it really well. So first of all, the complement of a verb that takes de. So if we have a verb that takes de, we can use dont, as in this example. Le livre dont nous nous souvenons. Because this verb, se souvenir, takes de. The book which we remember. Well, in English, of course, it doesn't have, the verb to remember doesn't have a preposition, but in French it does. So, le livre dont nous nous souvenons. And therefore we've managed to incorporate this idea of de. We haven't left it stranded at the end here. The book which we remember. And remember, there are many other verbs that take de as well, and you need to learn them all. Other verbs like s'inquiéter de sometimes, and what other verbs have we got? To think of some. Let's have a little look. The second use is when it's the complement of an adjective that takes de. For example, so the first one was with verbs that take de, like se souvenir de. And the second one is adjectives that take de. Le livre dont nous nous sommes contents, because it's content de. We can't leave that de stranded at the end. We need to incorporate it. We incorporate it in the dont. Le livre dont nous sommes contents. The book about which we are happy. And this is an instance in which we have a preposition in English as well, so it makes the point more clearly, about which we are happy. Strictly speaking, we really shouldn't say which we're happy about. Yeah? This is much more elegant, about which we're happy. I know things change in language, but this is how we need to say it in French, about which we're happy. And thirdly, the complement of a noun that takes de. Okay, so we've had a verb that takes de, an adjective that takes de, and now a noun that takes de. And this is also known as showing possession, whose. When we study it in class, we look at, we call it showing possession, don't we? And this is quite particular because it works a little bit differently to English. Here's our example. Le livre dont nous avons oublié le titre, because it's titre de. See, the noun plus de, and we can't leave that de there, we've got to incorporate it. In English, we'd say the book whose title we've forgotten. We'd use the whose. What this is literally saying is the book of which we have forgotten the title. Okay? And that's what you need to remember, because this is quite a different construction to this. When we use dont to show possession in this way, this is how the word order has to go. Dont, subject, verb, object. And if you translate it the way I just told you, then that will help you. Le maître dont nous voyons la maison. Well, in English we would say the master whose house we see. As it's constructed in French, it's this way, yeah? The master of whom we see the house. Okay, that sounds a little cumbersome in English. That is how it has to be constructed in French. It has to go in this order. Dont, subject, verb, object. Note, dont must be replaced by de qui with people, or duquel with things, if whose is preceded by a preposition. Now, when we look at the lequel series screencast, this will all become much clearer. But when we have a preposition, we must use one of the lequel series with things, or qui with a person. And so that's what this means. Here are some examples. La dame avec le frère de qui je dansais. Again, in English we'd say with whose brother I was dancing, but we've got this with. Avec le frère de qui. Okay? And la maison à la porte de laquelle j'ai frappé. The house at whose door I knocked. In French, it's the house at the door of which I knocked. So it has to be constructed this way. This doesn't happen all that often, but it's just something that you need to be aware of. Finally, we have où. Où means where, yes? And it's a complement of place or time. In the first example, this is something that we use all the time and we don't even think about it. Yeah? Le cinéma où j'ai vu le film. The cinema where I saw the film. Okay? There's our place. But what we might not know is that we have to use où with time as well. Le moment où elle a enfin compris. The moment when she finally understood. In English, we use when. In French, we must use où. Le moment où elle a enfin compris. Le jour où elle est rentrée. L'année où il s'est cassé la jambe. Whatever it may be, yeah? The time, où. We must use où with place or with time. Here is a little summary chart, which again will appear in the lequel screencast. What we use with people and what we use with things. So what we've covered in this screencast is people. We use qui when it's a subject, with people and with things. When it's a direct object, we use que or Q apostrophe with people, and also with things. With a possessive, we can use dont with people and with things unless there is a preposition, another preposition, with those special examples that we saw, and then we would use the qui with people and duquel with things. If it's an indirect object, and again we'll look at this in the lequel screencast, à qui or quel, and with a preposition we use qui with a person and lequel. Again, you'll see that in the next screencast. And there's some further reading. Au revoir.